Welcome to the Fredrickson Health Show, highlighting expert practitioners from health, fitness, injury prevention, functional medicine, and integrative medicine. If you are into upgrading and optimizing your health, this podcast is for you. This podcast is for educational purposes only and not intended to be used as personalized medical advice. And now, here is your host, Dr. Robert Fredrickson.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Fredrickson Health Show. Today, we have my friend, Twitter sensational, is that the right word? Twitter sensation, John Constas. So John Constas is a lifestyle medicine and functional medicine consultant. He has spent his years in a couple different industries, which we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about some differences in the pharmaceutical industry versus the natural nutraceutical industry. We're going to talk about the ins and outs of minerals, about stress, what you're going to do to help your sleep, what you're going to do to help living in a toxic world, what kind of foods are right for you, and what is the right exercise to do to maintain optimal health. So John, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's always nice to see you and have a nice chat. So I appreciate it, man.
Yes. I'm super excited to chat with you. It's been a while. We haven't seen each other in person in some time, but for anyone listening who doesn't know you, maybe they're not on Twitter, can you please introduce yourself and tell us about your background and how you got into this world of lifestyle medicine?
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, my name's John Constas. I've been building a Twitter brand for the past couple of years, and just a bit of a background on me. I have a background in a bachelor in kinesiology and a bachelor in biology. So I always had these aspirations to become a doctor, a medical doctor one day. A lot of people in my family were physicians and clinicians. So, the world of health and taking care of yourself and your body have kind of been in my spirit and in my environment since I was a child. And I always had this kind of calling as a kid that I wanted to help others. It was almost instinctual. And so when I went through school, all through, with science, the background, biochemistry, did all those kinds of things. And I finished school, my second bachelor, tried to get into medical school, didn't get accepted. So I decided that, for me, the university time was kind of over. I wanted to progress myself I was an adult at that point. I was 25 years old. And I said, now it's the time to maybe find another path. And, it was very hard on me, but, I always told myself that I would find my way. I always had something within me that was telling me that I would find my way no matter what. And so I kept pushing. First instinct, you study a background in health sciences. The first thing that comes to mind is pharmaceutical industry. Why? It's because you're gonna get paid well. There's a lot of perks of working in that industry. I wasn't really familiar with the world of functional medicine. For me, pharmaceuticals were it at one point in my life, and so I kind of got into that. Initially, what kind of happened as well, prior to that in high school, I had a very bad autoimmune disease, and throughout that time, it took about 6 years of doctor visits, the back and forth. Nobody could ever find out what was going on with me. So that kind of left a sour taste in my mouth of the whole kind of medical system. And, how could I be going to see doctors continuously and nobody can tell me what was wrong with me? It ended up being an autoimmune disease of the eye. And the only solution that I had, that I was given by doctors and specialists, was to put cortisone drops in my eyes for years. I'm talking about like 5-6 years.
Wow. And
I developed actually cataracts at like 15 years old. So I got cataract surgery at like 16 and 17 for both eyes. And, all that kind of experience kind of left me like, what is going on? Like, really? Like, that was the best they could do. And to end it all, the doctors were like, well, now it's under control, things are fine, but you're at risk if you ever get Crohn's disease or rheumatoid arthritis. Well, this was the first sign, and that's this was the sign as to why you got it. You had an autoimmune disease before it evolved into these other things. So I was like, great, like now I might have like a severe autoimmune health issue later on in my life, and I just didn't believe that was my destiny. So I decided to start, at 16 years old, I was already exercising, I was already training, but I had reached an age after university where I was done with the party years. I was done with not sleeping well. And I decided to just take control of my health and really invest in myself. It was a long journey. There was a lot of ups and downs. And, really the biggest down that I got was after I was working in the pharmaceutical industry. I felt like I was doing a lot of work there, and I had got on a new position as an outside sales rep working for a generic company. And what ended up happening is they wanted me to become a manager, and I was just so immature and young that it created so much stress that it literally burnt me out. I lost I was getting panic attacks, tingling in my fingers. It was just severe anxiety, and my hormones were just off the chart. Everything was messed up, and all the doctors again were just like, "Oh, it's okay. It's all in your head, man. Here, take this anti-inflammatory. Oh, take this. Just take this pill. Take this pill." Nobody could solve my health issues, and then I was like, it was almost at a point where I was like, "Hey, either I'm gonna have this severe anxiety for the rest of my life and be on meds, maybe some Ativan for the rest of my life as well, or I'm gonna find a way, some other way." For me, the first thing was naturally to deal with my issues. I went to go see a naturopath. He gave me ashwagandha rhodiola, and that changed my life instantaneously. So I was like, wow, herbs, this has potential. This worked for me. This is really cool. It really sparked my curiosity. That was kind of the second domino that fell in regards to functional medicine, because I was first introduced to functional medicine by a friend of mine who was following Charles Poliquin, a very famous strength coach. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I am. Yeah.
So he's very popular, and at that time, and he was doing a lot of seminars with him, and I just love the connection between functional medicine and training. It all makes sense. Working on high doses of magnesium, zinc, all these things. So I kind of had heard about it, but I wasn't really involved in that industry. And then a couple of months later, after I had this stressful panic attacks and I used the ashwagandha rhodiola, I found an opportunity to work at Ortho, which is what I did for the past 5 years until just recently. And, working in that industry, seeing, going on the website for orthomolecular products and seeing how, the leaders of the company were all about their philosophy on health was literally what I thought about health. I'm like, damn, I want to work in this company. I got in the interviews, I made it, and the rest is history. I had a lot of success. I helped a lot of doctors improve their practices. I had a lot of fun. I learned so much over the past 5 years about the supplement industry, the functional medicine, what you can do to help people live healthy lives using lifestyle. So it's been a great journey so far, and now I've started a new adventure on Twitter where I'm doing my health consulting there and helping people one-on-one improve their stress and their sleep and, really improve their lives at the same time.
Wow, that's awesome, John. So you have a really unique background, because not only have you been on both sides of medicine, you've been in the conventional, the pharmaceutical realm, but you've also been in the natural nutraceutical realm. Can you I want to unpack this. And so what was your experience like during pharma? What were the doctors interested in at that time? Were they interested in the studies, or were they more interested in just getting the lunch and then going back to work? And then contrast that to what the functional medicine conversation is with doctors. And I think we also need to unpack what functional medicine is and what that means for anyone listening who maybe doesn't know what that terminology is in our world. So.
Yeah, perfect. So I'll start, before I go into the pharmaceutical industry and my experience there, I'll kind of explain what functional medicine means to me and what it's kind of evolved to now. Functional medicine, really the purpose of it is to look at root causes of disease. So right now, conventional medicine, what they kind of look at is a bunch of charts, a bunch of blood tests, and they look at improving numbers, but they don't look at the whole system as a whole. They kind of look at, if I give this medication, I'm going to get X results on these charts. That's what I should be doing. For me, it wasn't enough. It was almost like a very narrow vision of how the body works, what health is all about. I always felt, even, working in the pharmaceutical industry, that it was, things need to be more comprehensive. And that's where functional medicine really rang true in my heart, is seeing how comprehensive, how the word holistic, it looked at the whole system. Really, it was phenomenal. And, the principles behind functional medicine it's the 5R protocol. So remove, replace, reinoculate, repair, and reharmonize. This all has to do with gut health. So really the theory behind functional medicine is that the gut is where health starts. So if you heal the gut, you can heal all the other systems. That's where your food is digested. That's where your food is absorbed. The nutrients to feed your brain and to feed all your organs. It all starts there. So if that environment and that organ system isn't at its best, your entire body isn't at its best. Your entire performance can't be the best it is. So that's why I love functional medicine. It's really looking at a comprehensive system of the body and looking at health in all aspects. Add into that, the lifestyle component where, you have to exercise, you have to eat well, you have to prioritize good habits for, when you wake up in the morning, when you go to bed. I find that it was too simplistic that, you had a problem and all you have to do is take a medication. I always felt like if you look at all your problems in a very simplistic way where you have a problem and you just take something and it solves it, you never really get down to the root of what you need to be doing. So I just find that what I love about functional medicine is that, compared to the pharmaceutical industry, is that it's looking to set you up for life so you can be your healthiest for years and years to come. And that's really the goal of functional medicine. For me, the pharmaceutical industry, it's almost like it's not looking at the big picture. It's no longer sustainable. People are taking these meds and still dying from the things that these meds are supposed to protect them from. So I think we have a lot of work to do. And what I'm seeing, particularly in the United States, is that a lot of people are waking up and realizing that it's not just about a pharmaceutical drug or taking a medication and solving a health problem. It's about looking at the whole picture and solving all your life, tweaking your lifestyle in a way that works for you. And that's going to work for long-term health. So that's why I love what I'm doing. And, last thing I want to say about the pharmaceutical industry before we move on is, when I was working in that industry, it was all about money. I was seeing pharmacists going door to door and getting business rolling. I can tell you that nobody even cared about the science, and where I was, in the domain that I was working on, they didn't really care about the science. They just cared about the price. Generics is a very salesy kind of business where it's all about who's giving the best price and the best service. And it's not really about like, this is going to bring X, Y, Z results. They all kind of do the same thing. It's just competing on price. So for me, that's why I think I was very stressed in those times. It just didn't feel like the right solution. And in my heart, I felt there was always something better. And then I found the opportunity with orthomolecular products to really take that passion of looking at the whole picture and helping others and helping doctors teach that to their patients. It's been great. So
yeah. That's awesome. I mean, we weren't born with a statin deficiency, a metformin deficiency. And I read an interesting study yesterday. The average person, the average adult who's just on one pharmaceutical is going to be on actually 4 pharmaceuticals. So it's not just one. And so that's interesting that you have all these insights onto how, it's working, how people are promoting the pharmacies. And we know there's a pharmacy on every subdivision or every corner, right, of every city. And that's a reason for that, right? What is the difference in a brand name pharmaceutical versus generic? Is it just price, or is there quality and studies? What's the difference there for anyone who's not familiar?
Yeah, so I would say generics, an original brand, so a brand medication usually has all the research that's gone into it. They have all the specific kind of excipients that they put into those products. So there's a much, I'd say, better standards as to what they put in there. I would say even in the pharmaceutical industry, they put a lot of things that they shouldn't be putting into their products. Excipients that are kind of toxic, like titanium dioxide or certain things that really shouldn't be in your capsules. But generics are just even cheaper than that. So they go to countries like India and China where the standards are just completely off the charts. And you can get, there's been a lot of recalls, especially here in Canada. Generics are very popular. There's been recalls because medications were tainted with certain components of certain chemicals that shouldn't have been in there that were actually carcinogenic. So, the standards of manufacturing in the pharmaceutical industry, we look at that as like the best of the best, but I think there's always a lot. There is better. At the end of the day, it really comes down to cost in the pharmaceutical industry. It's like, how can I make a product that's ultra cheap so that can bring me, back the revenues that I spend in R&D? For me, that for me was just like, it didn't really ring true to my heart, and that's why I kind of wanted to get it out of that industry and work somewhere else. But I'm not anti-pharma. I believe medications have their role, but we need to do a lot better, and the industry needs to do a lot better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not anti-pharma either. I definitely think there's a role in certain, situations to warrant the use of that in a short-term use. But yeah, everyone thinks that generic is the same quality as the original, right? And so we know in the supplement industry that is not true. That you can go to, like over here, it's Walgreens, CVS. That's the big box chain pharmacy stores. We know that the supplement off their shelf is going to be completely different than a clinical grade one that you find in the doctor's office. And we know that if you get a raw material from, let's say, China, which our company or Orthomolecular does not get it from, it's gonna be a lot different than one that you get from the actual source, right? If you're getting a turmeric that's not from India, you're probably not getting a good turmeric, right? So yeah, it's all about the quality, it's all about the source. And so everyone thinks that the pharmaceutical industry is the top of the top, but if you're getting a generic, maybe it's not. So
yeah, you got to be careful. It's money rules everything these days. So they cut costs whatever they can, and it's not to say that generics are not effective. It's just people need to be aware of the risks. And like you just said, the supplement industry is not any different. You can have a product that's $10 that's official, and you have a product that's official that's like $60 or $40, right? So it really depends what quality makes all the difference. If you want effectiveness, particularly in the supplement industry, you pay for what you get in the supplement industry. In the pharmaceutical industry, it's a little bit different. I don't think people should be too stressed out about that. Yeah.
Right. And I know we already touched on what functional medicine is, and what good quality supplements are. But can you expand on what good quality supplements are, but also expand on that it's not just supplements; it's everything else that you continually talk about with the lifestyle, with just getting the basics down correctly. We always forget the basics. We always forget sleep is easy, but we still don't sleep well. We still have anxiety through the roof. So talk about some of the strategies that you've used personally, but also with your clients that you've seen a lot of success with. If you had to just make it really simple.
Yeah. I'll make it really quick. What I would say is, when it comes to quality supplements, things that I tell my clients to look out for, and what everybody can really look out for is dosing. Really, the dosing is really important, and that's where it kind of gets tricky, because the dosing varies for every kind of herb or every kind of ingredients that you're using. But usually the best case scenario, if you want to increase your chances of getting a quality product, is asking your doctor who can recommend you a quality product. Usually doctors that are in this field of using supplements as a lifestyle, augmented lifestyle intervention, they will use quality brands that will invest in R&D. They're going to invest in raw material sourcing that's not coming from areas that don't test and qualify, really approve the quality of that they're giving you. I like to look for trademarks on the back of bottles for certain ingredients. So in the supplement industry, there are a lot of companies that are making raw materials that actually trademark their raw materials because they're pharmaceutical grade. So they're ingredients that have gone through tons of research and have been shown in scientific studies that to be effective, or have been used in scientific research. So that's kind of like a pretty easy tell that you're getting a good product. I look for USP as well, so United States Pharmacopoeia. Simply said, that's the recipe that these providers or raw material providers are using to make, let's say, vitamin C or vitamin A. When you see USP next to a raw material or an ingredient, it means that the product was the standards for the fabrication or the manufacturing of this product, of this ingredient, were very, very high, and they're very, very up to date. So it's like using a higher quality recipe book for the production of supplements. So those are a few telling signs that I like to look for. I forget the last part of your question, Robert. What was the end? You asked me something else.
It's just contrasting functional medicine and how you use lifestyle, and
Right.
go over augmented therapy, because you say that term a lot, because
Right.
you don't consider supplements as a mainstay, but unfortunately in our society that we have to use them because we just don't get, as you'll say, the nutrients from our
Right.
food. We're so
Right.
stressed that we excrete certain minerals rapidly. So go over what that
Right.
means to you, what augmented therapies or augmented lifestyle interventions mean.
Right. Right. So, when I talk about lifestyle intervention with my clients, what I try to make them understand is, supplements for me are like the fast forward button to the healing process. But really what's going to matter the most are the essential pillars to vitality. Your stress management, your sleep, your diet, what you're eating, your environment. What are you exposing yourself on a day-to-day basis? Body products, shampoos, all these things. Things that people are using or doing every single day are what matter in the long term. Supplements for me are augmented lifestyle intervention because, like I said, they are the fast forward button. But really, the fundamentals that people need to be taking care of are the things they're doing every single day. Because once you do all these important things like eating well and getting outside and moving, getting some sunlight, exposing yourself to nature, disconnecting your phones, taking a break from the internet and the mainstream media or television. So all these things all add up, and for me, it's never about living a poor general lifestyle and just using supplements and hoping that the supplements are going to solve all your problems. For me, the fundamentals is getting the basics down packed. Establishing a right routine that works for you, because everybody's got a different routine. Everybody's got different sleep genetics. Some people are night owls. Some people are early risers. You need to discover all these things on your own. And there's plenty of tools out there to discover what kind of circadian rhythm you are. So what your sleep genetics are. Are you an early riser, whatever? You can find all that stuff on the internet. And these are tools that I like to use with my clients. So I want to empower them. I want to understand what are their predispositions and what they need to do in their life specifically based on a lifestyle trend or habits that they need to do to make sure that they stay healthy long term. When I start working with people, they're usually stressed out messes and they can't sleep and they have a lot of issues because of that. So getting those things down packed, it's almost like everything kind of places back. They start feeling better. They start feeling more energized. So for me, again, it's fundamentals first. Supplements are the augmented. It's like, I want to get there faster. I want to lose weight faster. I want to improve my metabolism faster. I want to manage my stress faster. Diet alone will get you from point A to point B. That's and the right habits as well. But for me, if you want to get there faster, supplements, quality supplements are the solution to that.
That was awesome. So we know that just maintaining health is going to require all these things, but what if you're already like way past this? You're already in a point of disease, and you talk about homeostasis a lot and how the body has a balance or a check and balance system. And what happens when we're supposed to bend but not break. But what happens when we break?
Right.
Well, how do we get out of that disease state quickly? What are your thoughts on that?
So to get out of, like, let's say when your entire cellular metabolism and cellular reserves are depleted, you're talking about that right now?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So I would say once it reaches that point, it takes a lot longer to come back to a state where you're optimal, where things are balanced out. So at that point, if you've gone to the point where you've broken that physiological resilience and you've pushed your body to extremes that it shouldn't have, it can go back to that homeostasis. So you have a disease state now. Now you have something like diabetes, or you have something, some other cardiometabolic disease. And that's where usually people see their doctor, they look at their blood charts and they're diagnosed with some sort of cardiovascular disease where they're put on the med, and then, they're told this is the med you're going to be taking for the rest of your life. You're going to manage these numbers and that's it, right? They don't tell them to change their diet. They don't tell them to exercise more. Maybe they do, but it's not like proactive. It is not, it's one thing to tell somebody. It's another thing to empower somebody. That's kind of the difference that I try to bring with the people I work with. Is I want them to, I let them know straight up, I'm here to guide you. I'm here to give you the roadmap, but it's up to you to get it done, right? So it's all about empowerment. And so when it comes to rebuilding that physiological resilience and rebuilding that, which your metabolic reserves in your cells, for me, what I like to look at is absolutely repairing the gut, supporting mitochondria. Mitochondria are the essentially the energy producing factories of all your cells. And you've got trillions and trillions of cells in your body. What you need to understand is, there's 4 organ systems that have a lot of mitochondria: your brain, your immunity, your cardiovascular system, and your liver. So, these are very, very important organ systems that if these mitochondria are not functional, that's where the chronic disease states show up. So really for me, when I think of somebody who needs to start from the bottom and go up, we got to repair the gut. We got to make sure the environment, the body is ready to heal, and then really support the cellular health so your cells can start repairing themselves and your whole system can start healing. So that's kind of how I look at it.
I love it. That was such a great analogy. Yeah, you're right. Because if they're going to a conventional doctor, and typically the average amount of time that a conventional doctor is spending with a patient is 5 to 7 minutes, right? So they're going to say, yes, you got high lipids, high triglycerides. We're going to put you on a statin, and we need to get you to eat better and exercise. But they're not going to give you any information on what that looks like, right? There's so many different diets and so many ones are going to work different for different people. Same with exercise. And I don't know if it's the doctor's fault because they just don't have enough time in the system that they're put in. But that's where functional medicine comes in, because hey, we can really dive into a patient and analyze, why don't you work out? Because you have this injury. Well, what's going on with this injury? What can we do to make these things better? You don't eat well because you have no time to make meals. There's certain things you could help so many people with if you just spend the extra time with them. So that being said, you've been in both sides of the industry, which is kind of cool. But during your time being a functional medicine consultant and lifestyle medicine consultant, you built a pretty big following on Twitter. Tell me about that journey, how that started, and why you wanted to start just getting your message out there.
Right. So it all kind of started when I was right into in the middle of the world of functional medicine. It was a couple of years I was into working at ortho. And I had met a buddy of mine while traveling for business in Halifax, so that's Eastern Canada. And I met him on the plane, and then we became very good friends. And then one night, I was talking with him, and I was talking about ortho and functional medicine and the effects of stress and how your body works and all that stuff. And he's like, dude, this stuff sounds really, really interesting, but I didn't understand a word you said. It doesn't make any sense to me. He's like, if you could find a way to make what you just said super simple that I could understand it, I think you have something pretty interesting you could offer. You're very knowledgeable about your stuff. So I was like, hey, that's a good idea actually. And I had another buddy of mine that was already on Twitter, and he's like, dude, I've tried Instagram, I've tried Facebook. He's like, Twitter for me is the best. People are there to learn. So I was like, okay, perfect. And so I started the Twitter account. That was early 2019. And then I decided that I was going to relay my message of functional medicine and all the knowledge that I had gained to the masses and try to get as many people as possible to understand what I was talking about. And that was really kind of the thing I saw in the industry too, is that in functional medicine, everything's designed for doctors to communicate and talk about. But I feel like the common layman can't understand what the hell is being discussed in these conversations because it's very scientific, it's very science heavy. So what if I can make functional medicine something that everybody could understand? What would happen then? And that's really how it sparked that was where my journey started. I started posting. I made good connections with big accounts. I had some big accounts that helped me up initially, and slowly but surely I showed up every day, posted every day, and really honed my writing and honed my comprehension of what I was talking about and of the industry, because now I had no choice. I really had to make this fun and interactive and really paint pictures that people could understand functional medicine and how their body works. So, it was almost like a giant classroom for me where I could just teach people what I knew about the body and connect it with functional medicine so that they can empower themselves and then take care of their own health. And it's, you know, it's grown so big now that people thank me all the time of things, you know, they never even engage with me on my content, but they write me a DM and they're like, you know, I followed what you've been saying for X months, and you know, my sleep has gotten better, my stress has improved, all these things. So, you know, indirectly, I'm still helping so many people on a much grander scale. So, and then, you know, that's kind of what sparked the coaching and the consulting with one-on-one clients, is people were asking me to help them. And I was like, okay, like clearly I have some skills that people want help with. And, you know, it's been a great journey so far, and I've had some great clients and great results. And it's really, it's been a wonderful journey. And I'm even looking forward to, you know, the next few years of what's going to happen, because it's, I think for me, it almost feels like the sky's the limit. And what I see, people are very sick, people are very stressed out, people aren't sleeping well. And, you know, I want to just help. I want to help as many people as possible. I've been in the same boat. I don't want people to go through the same boat that I've been. It was very painful. It was very hard to deal with. So I almost like transmuted my suffering into helping others in the future. It was like I was given this gift of struggling in my life to eventually use the struggles and help others. So empower others to not have to go through those struggles, or help them through their struggles. So it's amazing. It's a blessing, and I love waking up every day and getting, you know, helping people. So it's fun.
And I love everything that you post on Twitter. It's so simple, so clear cut, and it's actionable. Yeah. You can actually take action from your tweets. And I think that's one of the issues with functional medicine, is because, you know, I believe functional medicine is the future of healthcare. You know, I believe we should all be doing these things, but there's a couple hurdles. One, it's expensive, right? Not every person can afford functional medicine. The other thing is it's kind of considered still alternative. It's kind of like the redheaded stepchild of medicine. So I kind of feel like I need to go prove myself. I need to bring all the studies, all the data, you know, have anything that a doctor is going to say, you know, to me, and I'm ready to back it up with, you know, evidence-based studies and say, no, doctor, this is what the evidence is pointing to. But, you know, even the doctors, we need to explain it simple to them, because they're like, well, I don't know what NF-kappa B is, or these gene transcription switches, right? But the way you explain it is super simple, right? So what do you see the future of functional medicine, just while we're talking about this, and how do you see us bringing more functional medicine to the masses? Is it through consulting? Is it through group offerings? How do you see your business maybe helping with this dilemma?
I think there's going to be a lot more consultants that are going to join into the battle. I think doctors have their hands tied. You know, doctors have the board over their heads. You know, the doctors have no time. They've got a clinic to run. So I think what's going to end up happening, it's already happening very, you know, I would say in the US, you guys are like 10, 15 years ahead of Canada, but, you know, everybody working together rather than like, this is what I do, you don't touch that, or this is what I do, you don't touch that. You know, it's almost like everybody has their territory and nobody wants to share. But what the future of health and taking care of society and the well-being of society is everybody working together, everybody communicating with one another, everybody supporting each other. There's enough people on this planet to, provide clients and a business for any clinician or any health practitioner. I think for me, what's most important is, you know, the biggest challenge that I see in functional medicine becoming for the masses, like you said, is the price point. I find that things are getting very complicated. Things are getting so intense with testing, and everything needs to be like very precise and very, very, very expensive and very precise. And I find that health for me, I see the value in that. I see the value in all this testing, but I think health is a lot more basic than that. I feel like our primal way of being healthy shouldn't be about, $1,000 tests to determine what's the problem. Like, I feel like if you start teaching people the fundamentals right and properly, and they really grasp those fundamentals and they start applying in their lives, then you start eliminating chronic disease like this, right? It's people have been led to believe to live a certain way through the mainstream propaganda of, the things that they should be eating, the food pyramids, all these things are just a disaster, industry funded lies and deceit. That's just obviously my opinion, but if you look at the research that's coming out now, a lot of the things that they were saying 20 years ago are being proven wrong. So if you look in research and in science, things that are said now, that come out in the research now, only get applied into actual practice 30 years later. So, are you willing to wait 30 years before something's proven, or would you rather take theories and apply them into your life and work on things? You don't need research to tell you how to, do basic lifestyle things like sleeping better and eating better and, exercising. Like you don't need research. You don't need a paper to tell you how to do that. So for me, like my brand is really like just trying to get people back to the primal instincts of what's necessary, getting away from the hyperstimulation of our cities, getting out in nature, disconnecting from work, disconnecting from the things that are constantly revving your brain. And when your brain is constantly revved up, your biology is revved up, and that's just aging you faster. It's making you sicker faster. So I think really the fundamentals is rest and recovery, and finding what you love to do, and getting rid as much as possible of the environmental toxins that you're being polluted with, whether it be television, whether it be EMFs, whether it be all the things that are making you sick. We have to be proactive in the environment, in the society that we've evolved in. We have no choice but to take control of our own health, prioritize our well-being, because if not, then at one point it becomes too late, and it's much harder to deal with. So, really the purpose of what I'm doing is get people early to start waking up to the issues they're having, catch them early, deal with them right away, do the basics that's necessary. And, that's where it's going to go to the masses. To reach the masses, it's got to be cheap or free, because if it costs something, you won't get to the masses. So for me, it's all about education and empowering people to understand how their body works. That's what the problem is. Nobody understands how their body works. If they learn how their body works, it's like one biology class in high school, and they forget everything. But really, that's the most powerful knowledge that you could have in your life, is knowing how your entire body works and doing what's necessary to keep it healthy. So that for me is how functional medicine, the fundamentals of functional medicine are going to reach the masses.
Yeah, it goes back to an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of the cure, right? So we can start early,
Right.
Instilling these fundamental health principles into people, starting maybe at a young age, before when we're impressionable, and starting these habits, early on, that we probably wouldn't have all the chronic disease states that we have today. We'd have autoimmunity on the rise. So you talk about a lot of different things on Twitter. I think some of the biggest things you talk about, it's stress, it's anxiety, it's depression. What are some of the topics that you talk about get the most engagement? What are people most interested in from some of the posts that you make?
Honestly, definitely stress and sleep. People are stressed out of their minds, and they can't sleep properly at all. That's anytime I post something about sleep or stress, people love it. It's definitely a huge problem. Maybe it's just my following, but the people that I've attracted are all people that have these sorts of issues. And ask all 5 of your friends what their biggest issue is, and I could probably predict that maybe at least 3 out of 5 people have stress problems. 3 out of those 5 people have stress problems or sleep problems. So for me, that's the biggest challenge. And again, that's just how our society evolved. Everybody's so wired, stressed and wired, and they're stressed and wired for years and years and years and years and years, and they never do anything about it until they become a burnout. They're stressed and tired, and they're exhausted, and that's where other more severe mental health problems can eventually show up. Your body has a certain reserve, like we talked about before. So for me, catching it early and helping people catch these things early. With stress for me is the best thing, because it's a warning sign. When people are stressed out and they have sleep problems, that's the number one warning sign. So if you can catch them on that and you can get them working on that immediately, that's, everything else kind of falls into place. So that's why I'm telling you, stress and sleep is the biggest problem in America, probably worldwide too. So
stress and sleep. So what are some of the things you talk about that people get heated on, that they debate you on? What are some of the misconceptions out there that people have a strong belief in and they want to fight you on?
I would definitely say anything that has to do with nutrition. There's such a dichotomy now in nutrition. It's like either you're a complete vegan, or now there's even the other extreme of complete carnivore. There's still the battle between low carb and high carb and all these things. And I think the biggest issue with the nutritional sphere, and why I get a lot of heat from it, is that people look at the research as if it's like dogma. Like, this is what the research says. This is what we need to do. But what a lot of people fail to understand, and I don't know why, people are just hard-headed, but all this research that you see, particularly in the nutrition sphere, are industry funded. A big portion of it are industry funded. So companies that are looking to push their products or push a certain thing, one that comes to mind is seed oils or industrialized seed oils. There's a big money in there. Literally, these things have become the backbone of all the food that you find in grocery stores. I would say like 90% of the food you find in grocery stores all have seed oils in them. And these things came out of kind of like the garbage of manufacturing. They went and they reprocessed this stuff to make it edible for human consumption. That to me is just criminal. Like, people don't know this because all they see is on the label, oh, heart healthy, this is great, it lowers your cholesterol. But for me, like, people need to look deeper, and there's a lot of shady things that go on, particularly in the nutrition industry. Things that needs to change. And I think that people need to understand that our biologies didn't evolve that much since 200, 300,000 years ago when humans showed up on Earth. Our world, the food that we eat, have changed completely. Like, people from those times who come into the food that we're eating now, they wouldn't understand what the hell we're eating, right? But we need to educate people and help them understand that these new foods, maybe, it's great it's very quick and easy to get and produce and consume, but they may not be the healthiest thing. And and then there's the other side of that kind of that double-edged sword is that we have a lot of people to feed on the planet. We can't be feeding them grass-fed beef, everybody, and top quality fish and all that stuff. So it's harder. It's a harder discussion. So for me, it's like, what the future of nutrition needs to be, and what I think people need to absorb, is that there's never going to be a true answer. What the future of nutrition is personalization, choosing your food based on your biology, based on your genetics, what you can digest better, and supporting your natural innate capacity to eat certain things. Everybody, we've all evolved based on where your origins and your DNA is from to eat different things. So I think people have to stop being dogmatic about how they eat, and they should start doing what works best for them and what makes them feel the best. And nobody should be criticizing what other people are eating. I think that's the problem. Is you want to criticize vegans, you want to criticize carnivores, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. It's just a mirror image of one's the other, the polar opposite of the other. It's the same principle. When you go into extremes, I find that number one, it's not sustainable. Number one, it's not good for your biology and your genetics. I think everybody should have a balance of what they're eating, of acidic foods and basic foods, and getting the vegetables, getting the meats, getting the quality seafood. People need to be just think about what your ancestors ate. Things that flew in the air, things that ran in the fields, or things that were in the water. Those are things that you should be eating. Anything else, ask questions. Is this really good for me? Is this too synthetic? That's the problem with our food. It's becoming too synthetic. The soils are all messed up. You're not getting as much nutrition from your foods, and that's where supplementation is coming in. And I think the unfortunate truth is, unless you have a farmer and a farmer, and you live in an island away from a stressful environment, people are going to be needing supplements in this day and age. That's unfortunate truth.
I agree. Yeah, and so it's so true, John, what you said about the nutrition wars Man, it's intense on the Twitter, especially. Everyone's got their own opinion of the perfect diet. You got one class of people saying only eat meat. You got one, class of people saying only eat vegetables. You got some people say it doesn't matter what you eat as long as your calories are the same.
Right.
And I think those people are trying to get a message that it's about weight loss, but not about health. And so, there's so many different nuances here. And like you said, there's no perfect diet. But if you had to, just outline some basic food philosophies for most people, I know everyone's an individual, what would those be? And what is your personal food philosophy, and how do you eat on an everyday basis?
I would say for me, what I love to do for myself personally and for most of my clients is I get them on a low carb diet, but with more of a carb backloading if they're active, especially if they're active and they're exercising. So I'm a big believer that we shouldn't start our days with carbs. Why? Because hormonally, if you start your day with something like oatmeal or something like bread or any refined wheat, you spike that food gets digested and becomes essentially sugar in your blood, and so your blood sugar goes up, your insulin goes up, and when your insulin is out of balance, so is your stress, your cortisol, which is your stress hormone. So I try to teach people that the first thing that they eat determines their whole day, their whole neurochemistry, particularly, so the brain chemistry that's going on. So for performance, I'm a huge believer in fats and proteins to start your day, because proteins particularly are filled with tyrosine and they're filled with phenylalanine. These amino acids, these small little proteins, eventually create these brain chemicals called dopamine. So dopamine is like that energy, that focus, that brain chemical that helps you perform every day and it keeps you motivated and gets you out of bed, keeps you on top of your toes. But I think people definitely need to prioritize fats and proteins to start their day. I've done it with all my clients, and people lose weight much easier that way because they stay in a more of a fat burning state because they're not feeding their body, they're not spiking their insulin right first thing in the morning. They're sticking more into like a ketosis almost throughout, the fasting of the sleep of bedtime and waking up in the morning eating the fats and proteins. But those are how I start. I like fruits. I think fruits have their purpose. So I'm not a guy who's like keto or just pure fats and proteins. So I have them start eating fruits and stuff later on. It's a great source of quick nutrition, particularly citrus fruits. One of my favorite citrus fruits is hold on, I'm thinking the word in French, grapefruit. So grapefruit for me is phenomenal because it has a lot of chemical compounds in it that actually boost your liver detoxification. So it boosts something called cytochrome P450, and all these little components are very nutritious, and they have a lot of vitamin C, which is what a lot of people are lacking in their diet, especially if they're not eating these kinds of fruits. But that's the kind of principle I like to go. When it comes to meat and stuff, I love wild meats. So things like bison, things like elk. I love when people mix and match these things because you're getting a different amino acid profile with these different kinds of meats. So you're feeding your brain in a different way. So I have people cycle through those things. I love people to have seafood. Seafood for me is very important for your omega-3s, right? Our environment is so polluted with omega-6s, which are inflammatory fats. So having people eating seafoods, I would say a good twice a week is essential for optimal health and keeping your inflammation low and by boosting your omega-3, which is your anti-inflammatory fat. So, and again, vegetables. I love a mix and match of vegetables. People need to be eating those cruciferous vegetables, particularly for hormone balance. Broccoli has something called DIM and I3C in it, which is essentially, it helps your body detox estrogen. Our environments are so full of xenoestrogens and chemical compounds that get stuck in our fat. And that's what actually makes us sick. These things get stuck there, and then your fat cells get bigger and bigger. When you have more fat, you have more inflammation. When you have more inflammation, you have more disease. So, eating the right foods on a day-to-day basis and supporting your system of cleaning itself out is vital. And so for me, nutrition is fundamental, and, following those very simple principles again, like going back to what your ancestors ate hundreds of thousands of years ago, like what would they have found to eat? That's usually the best bet you can find. You can make to keep yourself healthy for sure.
I love that. Yeah. To say that again, because you said it so quickly and so elegantly, the more toxins we have, the more fat we have, the more fat we have, the more inflammation we have, right? It's just kind of this downward spiral, and we're so inflamed in today's world. And I want to go over something that you quickly went over, but I want to go over it more in depth. Seed oils. You had a big post recently that got a lot of engagement, went viral, I think you told me. Tell me about what the problem is with seed oils and how they are inflammatory to our bodies, and why they are in so many different things that we consume, or that a lot of people consume on a daily basis.
So, why? So I'll start with why seed oils are terrible. So seed oils are polyunsaturated fatty acids. So we have two main types of fats in nature. You have unsaturated fats and you have saturated fats. So saturated fats are things that are coming from an animal source, most likely. Lard from pigs, suet from lambs, those sort of things. Beef tallow is another example. Those are saturated fats. You also have some plant sources of saturated fats like coconut oil or palm oil. So those fats are very stable. They're more solid. You'd find them in nature as a solid form versus unsaturated fats that have a double bond between a carbon. So fats are carbons and hydrogens together, and they make a fat. But these unsaturated fats have a double bond, which means that at room temperature they're liquid. So what's the problem with a molecule that's a saturated fat is that it's very unstable. And so when things are unstable, they can oxidize very easily. We have oxygen around us. This oxygen interacts with this molecule and it makes it oxidize. We call it oxidation. So the problem when you oxidize an oil is it becomes rancid. And it becomes rancid, it means that it's inflammatory. So people are consuming these rancid oils in their foods, and they're actually increasing their omega-6 levels because these oils are made out of omega-6s. So the problem with that is, for me, why are these everywhere, and why have they become the backbone of our grocery stores and all the food in our grocery stores is money. They are dirt cheap, and literally the problem with these seed oils is, like I mentioned before when we were talking, is they came from a garbage. It was essentially the end product of a manufacturing process. So they had, they were, for example, they were taking for canola oil, they were using the flour, and then the pods were left, and they were like, what can we do with this stuff? So they started crushing them and extracting the oil. But the problem with this oil is that it smelled bad. It wasn't ready. It had to be processed a lot. So they use things like hexane, so solvents, to like clean it out. They add in metals. They add in a bunch of chemical processes to make this stuff that isn't palatable naturally, make it, look nice and have a nice color. And they actually even add vitamins into it to make it something that, oh, look, this is a heart healthy alternative, because, they were coming out with studies that were saying seed oils lower your LDL cholesterol. And so, at the same time as these seed oils were entering the market, the science backing them up and saying that they were healthy for you was following suit. And so people were like, oh, like this is an alternative that I should use. And even in the 50s, when all these things started coming out, Crisco and stuff came out in the 50s, there was still a movement back then that people didn't want to harm animals. And so, all of the other fats were coming from animals. So people were looking for a plant-based version of animal fat, and that was the solution. And so, now it's become, for me, it was a lot of propaganda, a lot of fraudulent research, correlative research, which is what you see a lot in nutrition studies, is that, correlation, they see these correlations and they blame something, or they say that something is causing something. But at the end of the day, correlation does not equal causation. And looking at epidemiological studies as well is not a good factor to determine whether a food is healthy or not. So that's the problem with the nutrition industry. And these things for me are all over the place because the people that are using them just want to cut costs. It's a great way to make money. It's dirt cheap, and it can go anywhere, and it doesn't have a taste like the other fats do. Like animal fats have a flavor to them. So these seed oils, you can put them anywhere to add a fat to make your food, but it doesn't have a taste. It doesn't take away from the taste. So that's why I feel like they've penetrated the entire market, and that's it.
That's a great explanation. I'm gonna have to make some clips out of this to post later so people can get a better understanding of the difference in good quality oils versus the more inflammatory seed oils. But so my understanding is some PUFAs like omega-3s, are also in that class, but they're also good. Can you talk about the balance in maybe the omega-3 to omega-6 ratio and why it's so out of whack in today's society?
Yeah. So there is, now I've been spending a lot of time through Twitter. I've been seeing a lot of research in regards to even omega-3s because they're polyunsaturated fatty acids. They still have the risk of being oxidized. And, that's where the discussion of quality fish oils versus the stuff you'll find at pharmacy for $10 or at Costco. You pay $15 and it gives you 3 months worth of fish oil. Again, the question of rancidity and the freshness of the product makes all the difference with omega-3s. And so, why are omega-3s so popular? They're actually, I think now collagen actually replaced omega-3s, but for years and years and years, omega-3s were like the #1 sold supplement on the market. Why? Because there's thousands upon thousands of research papers that have looked at omega-3s and their effects on health. They've seen research that shows that it improves triglycerides. There are people that have been using it for even weight loss, big doses of fish oil. There's tons of research on that. So, these fish oils became so popular because the research was so prevalent. And, the problem with our Western society is that our environment and our food is so high in omega-6s that the average American's ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is 20-1. So, we all have a ratio within us of omega-6 to omega-3. So omega-6 inflammatory, omega-3 anti-inflammatory. You need to have that in balance. If you look at certain primitive cultures, particularly the Eskimos up north, you see that they have a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 because their diets themselves, they don't eat a lot of processed foods. They're eating a lot of animal fats and proteins. So those things are very rich in omega-3s. And so the omega-3 levels are high. Then, what they saw in research is these people don't end up having cardiovascular disease and heart attacks and stuff like that. Here, it's completely different. The ratio is so high that, we're seeing these severe cardiovascular diseases. They're even showing, now, a connection between the inflammation that you have from the food you're eating. So the omega-6 that you consume causes neural inflammation. So inflammation of the brain, which means mental health problems. So, the foods that we're eating for many, many years now, clinicians have been saying, food isn't that important when it comes to your well-being. That's an ancient philosophy. We need to get everybody involved and help everybody understand that every single food they're putting into their body is either breaking them down or building them up. And, these PUFAs and these omega-6s that people are putting in their bodies are doing a lot more damage than we're being led to believe. And I'm just here to try to ring the alarm and help people understand, just as yourself, Robert, we need to find a balance and we need to do what's necessary to diminish this inflammation, because inflammation is a silent killer. And I think in the next, maybe decade or so, we're going to realize how important the food that we're eating is in regards to our inflammation and into keeping us alive longer, right? So it's going to be exciting to see that.
Yes, I completely agree. So so not all omega-3s are good, as you said. And if you go to Costco and you open up a bottle of fish oil and you smell it and it smells bad, you probably shouldn't take that fish oil, right? Because as you said, omega-3s are still a PUFA. And so if they get oxidized because they're very unstable, they can cause more harm than good. So it's a net negative, as you tend to say a lot. So if it provides no benefit and it's a net negative, why even waste the money, right? So that's why getting a good, clean fish oil, ones that Orthomolecular produces, ones that Nordic Natural produces, are key, because they're doing the Totox values, they're testing for oxidation, they're getting the freshest oils with a fresh catch to capsule, and that's what you want in a fish oil, especially if you're going to be taking a polyunsaturated fat. Even though it is omega-3, it's got to be clean and it's got to be unoxidized, right? I love it. I love it. Absolutely. So, how can we improve our sleep, John? What are some natural tips that you'd like to promote? If I was coming to you as a friend at a party and I said, hey, I'm not sleeping very well, what would be your first things you told me and why?
Number one, get technology out of your bedroom. No phones, no nothing, no television, no computers. There is another industry that's very split up. The research community that's split up is EMFs and the effects of technology on our brains. That in 5 to 10 years from now, we're all going to look back and be like, we should have known this, and I think that the biggest problem that people have is they're spending every minute possible prior to bed staring at a blue light screen. That blue light on your screen is literally waking up your brain, telling your brain, oh, this is not night, this is morning, this is afternoon. So it shuts off the production of something called melatonin in your brain, and without melatonin, you can't fall asleep. So having these pieces of technology in your room, while you're asleep, if this phone is flashing and that light is hitting your eyelid while you're asleep, it's still messing up your sleep. Literally, light that hits your eyelids while you're out is a terrible idea. It's diminishing the quality of your sleep. So for me, the number one thing is get your phones, get your technology out of the bedroom. The number two thing is start taking magnesium. Dirt cheap mineral, but everybody's depleted in it, and it's literally magnesium for me is the supplement on the market that somebody takes it at the right dosage for the right amount of time, and it's almost like a magical cure for the majority of people that get on it. I talk about it all the time because I'm literally a magnesium guy, because I've taken so much magnesium in my life, and I've seen how much every time I increase my dosage and get better and better at taking it, my health just dramatically improves. So for people in particular that are stressed out, not sleeping well, you better get on that magnesium train ASAP, particularly a glycinate. Glycinates are the best, for me, it's the best form of magnesium because it's extremely bioavailable. I like to use tracks. So if you look at it on the back of a label, you're going to see something that says TRAACS, tracks. So it's from a company called Albion, and they're like the world provider of top quality chelated minerals. So things like magnesium glycinate. For me, it's my go-to. It's the only stuff I take. And, again, magnesium, it's all about quality. My quality and dosage is going to make all the difference. And, my last thing for sleep is get sunlight. If you're not getting sunlight throughout the day and you're stuck inside an office with synthetic light all day, your brain is not going to be ready to fall asleep at night. So getting sunlight, one, boosts dopamine in your brain, which actually heals your eyes. That's like one thing. People are ruining their vision is because they're constantly staring at screens inside. And back in the day, our ancestors were always outside looking long distances and getting sunlight in their faces and into their retinas. Those things are all very important for eye health. So get outside, get some sunlight. Also, when you get sunlight, you produce more serotonin, which is another brain chemical that produces eventually melatonin, your sleep hormone. So without sunlight, you're not producing the right body. You're not harmonizing your body clock to the day and night cycle, and that causes sleep problems or stress problems or severe health problems down the line as well.
I love it. I'm a magnesium guy myself. I pretty much tell every single person, if you're not taking magnesium, you're not living an optimal life because you're just not getting enough from food. Or if you're getting magnesium, you're getting it from an inferior source. You're getting a mag oxide, or maybe it's a mag carbonate's okay, but maybe you're getting a mag citrate. And that's good if you need to go to the restroom, but that's about it, right? So it's not going to help get incorporated to the cells. It's not going to help with pain. It's not going to help with inflammation or sleep, right? So I love it. So
Yeah.
next one, you might actually mention magnesium again, but how can we help our anxiety naturally? What are some of your best tips?
Definitely magnesium number one. Like that's like the easiest, simplest way if people want to improve their, there's a whole bunch of different herbs and different combinations that people can use. But step number one is get on the magnesium train again. Step number two, when it comes to anxiety, I would say is mouth breathing, not breathing from your nose. So a lot of people, it has to do with a few factors. One factor is the foods that people are eating. People's jaws have kind of become weaker because they're eating less meat, they're eating more soft foods. So when you have a weaker jaw, you have a weaker tongue posture. And so you end up breathing from your mouth rather than from your nose. And when you breathe from your mouth, you get less oxygen down into the diaphragm. So you have your lungs and you have your diaphragm. Diaphragm is what allows your lungs to expand a lot more, and more oxygen can go deeper into your lungs when you diaphragmatically breathe. But when you're mouth breathing, you're only breathing with your lungs. So you're getting less oxygen to your body, inside your body. There's less oxygen to your brain. You're stressing more. That's a stressor to the body, 100%. So one of the number one things, and it's like, you can do it always, anytime, anywhere. It's completely free. But people that are stressed out, I can guarantee if they pay attention, they will realize that they're either one, holding their breath, or breathing from their mouth, which is causing them to hold their breath as well. So throughout the day, keeping the mouth closed, breathing through the nose, making sure that you're getting that deep breathing into your lungs, into your diaphragm, because if you're not diaphragmatically breathing, you're putting your body into a hyperventilation state. And when you're hyperventilating, it's a stressful environment. And so, these are like really two tips that when I start working with people with anxiety, I try to like implant it deep into their brain that these are like the basic fundamentals they're going to have to be doing. And, that's definitely a great thing as well. If you have like an anxiety attack or there's a lot more stress, you can do box breathing. So it's breathing in 5 seconds, holding for 5 seconds, and then breathing out for 5 seconds. And you repeat that 3-4 times. That activates something called the vagus nerve, which is the connection your brain has to the parasympathetic nervous system. So if you have two systems, two different modes in your nervous system and in your brain. The sympathetic nervous system, which is your stress, fight or flight, stress, escape, survive. And then you have your parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest, calm, relax. So looking to activate this calm relaxation mode, you can use box breathing to activate the vagus nerve to calm your nervous system down. So those are really like 3 basic tips that I would offer people for sure.
I love that. And one of the best parts about that is it's free, right? There's nothing you have to pay to learn to breathe better. And it's such,
Right.
I'm hearing more and more about proper breathing, nasal breathing all the time. I just did a podcast last episode on this very same subject. So there is a lot to be learned on proper nasal, diaphragmatic breathing that we just don't do in our high stress, fast-paced society. So thank you for sharing that, John. And so with your current role, which is, you're consulting with your clients and your patients, can you talk about the decision that ultimately led you to want to pursue entrepreneurship and, building your own business? Because I know you had a very good job, consulting doctors all around Canada on lifestyle intervention, supplements, et cetera. So how did that decision evolve?
Honestly, it just kind of happened, and it was almost, I would say even before I started working as a salesperson, as a sales account executive at Ortho, I had this entrepreneur fire within me. You probably won't be able to see on my board, but 6-7 years ago, I written on the top of my whiteboard behind me there that I wanted to start an online business. For me, it was the online business was freedom to work from wherever I wanted. And I wanted to feel that I want to be my own boss. And it kind of happened, the decision to actually go forward and move on with this decision of being an entrepreneur and all that stuff happened over my experiences of being a salesperson. when you're a salesperson, you're starting a business from zero, like I did here in Canada, working for Molecular Products. They had $0 business coming in from where I was at, and I brought them to, right before I left, was $50,000 a month. And I was like, hey, like, if I could build a business for somebody else, like, why wouldn't I be able to do it for myself? And, I always felt like I was helping people indirectly through the work I was doing at Ortho by teaching doctors and other clinicians how to take care of, how to use lifestyle medicine and supplements in their practice. But, I always felt that I always loved the concept of helping somebody one-on-one and getting that, that satisfaction of guiding them and holding their hand every step of the way to achieve goals. I'm a guy I'm a very goal achieving kind of guy. And, for me, in my journey, I kind of was lucky and fell into good mentors and people that could help me progress and improve my health and my well-being. So I want to just give back and help others as well. And that's what, entrepreneurship was the best solution for me to do that. And I'm telling you, it kind of just happened. I was going to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know what, but the health consulting on Twitter literally just happened on its own. It was like, hey, like this is what you're going to do. And in my eye, I was like, perfect. Like, this is exactly what I wanted to do. So everything kind of, came out properly. And I could tell you, Robert, that I had a lot of years of just stress and anxiety thinking about, what my entrepreneur journey be like? What would things happen? And at the end of the day, like, I shouldn't have never stressed because everything that was supposed to happen ended up happening on its own without even me. All I did is have to put myself out there and put a little bit of effort and build slowly but surely. And by building, they came almost kind of thing. So that's how it worked on my end. It was a fluke, but also just showing up every single day kind of thing.
It all happens for a reason. I'm so excited for you, brother. So
thanks, man.
If we could go into the future and we could make a billboard and you could put 1 to 2 health sentences on this billboard that everyone that drove past this billboard would see, what would you say on this billboard and why?
Okay, so number 1 is make sure to take your magnesium every night or every day.
Yes.
That's definitely sentence number 1 because, like we've mentioned before, it's a hot topic of mine, and it's become a hot topic on this podcast. But magnesium, if people want to improve their lives very fast and almost effortlessly, buy yourself a quality magnesium and start taking it. You're going to notice a difference right away. Another sentence is keep health simple. I think that we've become, everything in our life is becoming so complicated. We've got 7 different choices of social media to use. We've got thousands of different choices of foods we can eat. We have all these different choices that we can make, but most of them are crap. So the best thing we can do is just keep things simple. Health for me is simplicity. What works best for you? What requires the least amount of effort on your end? And what do you enjoy? That's for me is health. And you can't be healthy and do things if you don't enjoy doing them and enjoy being healthy, right? Like it's a choice you have to make. And so I just want people to keep things simple in their lives and keep health simple and do the simple things, and everything else is going to solve itself on its own, honestly.
Keep it simple and take your magnesium.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. So I think I already know the answer to this question, but I've been wrong before. So if you were on a desert island and you could only take 1 supplement or 1 health-related device, what would it be and why?
Oof. Because, on a desert island, I don't think you'd be as stressed. So, like, I feel like magnesium, you'd be getting it from the sea and stuff. But if I was on a deserted island, what would be my favorite supplement? That's a tough one. Honestly, I'd probably say mitochondria, because this mitochondria would just give me unlimited energy so mitochondrial support, something that could boost my energy production and keep me active and top performing throughout the day. That would be definitely a supplement that I would want to enjoy. And, for me, if you keep your mitochondria healthy, you age slower, your body stays healthier longer. So I would want to live longer on this island and enjoy it. So I would definitely get a mitochondrial support while on this island to to just enjoy and live longer.
I love that answer. So supporting the mitochondria, so you're able to hunt better, fish better, have more energy to build your camp. That's awesome. Yeah, I always pick magnesium, but I like the mitochondria support. That's awesome. All right, John, this has been a total blast speaking with you today. And I feel like anyone listening to this podcast is going to be healthier if they just implement everything you said. That's all I got to do. It's that simple, right? So where can people find you on social media? Where can people find you on Twitter and any other social media handles that you're on? Please let us know.
Yeah, perfect. So right now I'm fully on Twitter. So you can find me. My handle is @John Constas, CONSTAS. And I'm all my content's on there. I have a mailing list and newsletter that's set up. That's going to be released by the end of this month. So for anybody that's interested in getting more health tips or enhancing their well-being, they're free to join that as well. But that's Twitter is all I have for now. So
awesome. And your website is?
Yeah. So my website as well is John Constas at johnconstas.com. So www.johnconstasmyname.com. Perfect.
Awesome. John, it's been a pleasure learning from you. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing your expertise. I really think people are going to be healthier because of this podcast. So thank you again, and we will see everyone next time.
Thanks, Robert. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, man.
Thanks for listening to the Fredrickson Health Show. This podcast is for educational purposes only and not intended to be used as personalized medical advice. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, leave us a rating and review. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our email newsletter for more information.